Guys, it's English Wine Week Part 3. And today, get ready for one of the loveliest people ever to be on that podcast. Not only is Mary Bridges an exciting conversationalist, she's also one of England's youngest head winemakers, and she has a fascinating story. And her winery, Gusbourne, is also responsible for me discovering my love for English wine when I was able to buy the 2012 Blanc de Blanc at auction in 2018. So now have fun and enjoy one of the best Pinot and Pixel podcast episodes ever. Welcome to Pinot and Pixel podcast episode number 159. Today, I'm joined by Mary Bridges. Mary Bridges is the head winemaker at Gusbourne. She grew up in a small town near Inverness in Scotland, known for malt whisky. Her parents were involved in outdoor activities, which installed a connection with nature that she's carried on in her career. She worked in hospitality in Scotland before deciding to pursue a career in winemaking. She then went on to study viticulture and ethnology at Plumpton College, and today she's on our podcast. Mary, thank you so much for being here.
No worries. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
I am so excited because, you know that because we met at Pro Wine. Gusbourne brought me to the English wine movement, to English wine, the vintage 2012, and we tasted the bottle together. Such an honor. So, maybe let's start quite easy. Can you tell us something about your upbringing in Scotland and how this has influenced your approach to winemaking?
So it was a very remote part of Scotland, and as you said, malt whisky country. So you might think I would have gone into whiskey production, but my parents, so my dad, he was a farmer, but my parents loved outdoors. They loved gardening. They loved, growing things to eat them, local produce and all of that sort of thing. So I guess from quite a young age, growing and crafting was kind of in my world. But my parents, they also like wine. So there was always, with the Sunday lunch, there was always a nice glass of wine on the table. So wine wasn't an unusual thing either. It was part of growing up. It was quite normal in my household. So I guess there's some influence there, just in terms of my approach, my style, and just working hard with what you can do in the land, and turning that into something great.
What did they drink? I mean, there was no English wine available, I guess. So.
I'm sure there was some, but we didn't drink that. We drank mostly Bordeaux, Southern French. That's kind of where that was their go-to, I suppose. And we used to go on holiday once a year to sometimes Burgundy as well. And the deal was, if we could go wine tasting in the morning, we could swim in the pool all afternoon. So
okay.
I think when you're 5 or 6, wine tasting is not your idea of a fun time on holiday. That's funny how that changes now.
Yes. I mean, my parents also took me to wine countries and wine regions. I don't know. I've been to Tuscany a few times, but wine wasn't my focus. So, did I see it correctly that Inverness is the most northern city of the UK?
Yes, I don't think anything much beyond that is classed as a city.
Iceland?
There's certainly lots of little remote towns up there. But of any size, probably. I don't actually know that for sure.
Okay.
Maybe
how big is it?
Scotland.
Or small? What do you want?
It's pretty small. You could probably drive past it or drive through it and miss that you're in a particularly big city.
Really?
But it's busy now, with tourists. We get people from all over the world coming through. It's a good place if you want to check if you've got any Scottish Highlander ancestors and buy your family tartan. It's a good spot.
Okay. And how did it come that you started in hospitality?
Yeah, so I left school when I was 17, and because and I could have stayed on a little bit longer, but I didn't really have an interest in school or have an interest in going to university. I didn't really have, there wasn't one subject that was a real passion for me that I wanted to go and learn more about. So I did what lots of people do. I got a job in the local hotel and local restaurant, worked there for a couple of years, and then decided that I wanted to go and of course then you're around wine a lot more. And I decided I wanted to go and learn a bit more myself. So I did the WSET level 3 in London, and I went and spent 2 weeks down there doing the kind of intensive, I think it was called novice to expert or something at the time, 2 weeks intensive. But you get the level 3 certification. And I loved that. I thought it was, they really opened my mind, and I met lots of different people. And coming from the north of Scotland, it's quite closed. It's, it's like being back in time sometimes, it's a very small, remote part of the world. So going to London for 2 weeks was like, whoa, there are people here. It's busy, people from all over the world. Yeah, it kind of was at the age of 18 or 19, I was then, which is crazy that I just hadn't experienced that sort of volume of people. And one great thing was that lots of people on the course were, they were different ages, different backgrounds, different countries. And I had the best time, and passed, did well, and went back up and started working in a different hotel, a bit more of a boutique hotel. It had a 1 Michelin star restaurant at the time too. So I was just back in a place with really good food, really good wine, started to get much more involved with the wine list, tasting with some of our suppliers, and I was just completely kind of, that was my favorite thing about the job. I loved the food, and I loved the sort of social side of it, and the talking to guests side of it. That was great, but it was the wine that was the kind of bit that I felt passion for, I suppose. So I kind of did that for a bit, but there was something in the back of my mind, like, do you want to be in hospitality forever? Is there what else is out there? Do I have to go to New Zealand or the USA if I want to study further in wine? And then I can't remember how it came about, but I realised that Plumpton was in the UK, and much closer than California or New Zealand or Australia. So I just applied one day. I just sat there and here you go, send off my application, see what happens. And I got offered a place. So that was probably in the March, to start in September. And then in September, I drove down and arrived in this place where I didn't know anybody, and gave myself, I thought, do you know what, give yourself a week to settle in. And on day one, I was thinking, what do I do? Just all a bit sort of bored and, don't know anyone. But then as soon as the course started, it was totally different. You get into it and you find your feet, and before you know it, that's life. So
when was that?
It was that was 2017. So
17, okay.
What are we? 7 years ago? 6 years ago? 7 years ago. Yeah. Which in itself, that's a bit nuts.
I'm still stuck on the WSET thing. What makes a 17 or 18-year-old girl decide to make WSET 3? It's quite unusual, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I probably got a bit of encouragement from my dad,
Okay.
because he knew a little bit about the program, and I did a bit of research, and I think the level of knowledge that I wanted at the time, level 3 sounded right, and I was prepared to kind of push to do that. There were things. So where I was working, there was one of the guys that was one of the managers. He would tell me things, about Syrah and Shiraz, and they're completely different. There's nothing that links them, and I was thinking, I thought they were kind of the same but different regions. So I was getting told a few things that I wanted to kind of check up on for myself and just learn it for myself. So that's why I did it, and that's kind of why I went straight to the level 3.
Okay, and then Plumpton College for, what is it, 3 years?
3 years. 3 years, yeah. So the BSc undergrad in viticulture and enology. So the first year is very much viticulture focused, second year is much more winery focused, and then the third year kind of ties it all up. And then you do sort of a research project in that final year.
Okay. And then you started, or you stayed in England and started your wine career. Or what happened?
Yeah. So I was, so when I joined Plumpton, I didn't actually know what my end goal was. I just was on a journey. And I thought, well, I'll figure it out while I'm here. There'll be, I'll go abroad, there'll be something. So in my end of my first year, I actually went to France. I went down to the south of France near Perpignan, a place called Maury, and worked in a vineyard for about 4 months, doing lots of green work, sort of canopy work, fruit removal, preparing the vines through the season for harvest. And I thought that was great. I loved it. And I didn't actually want to, I was always going to come back, but getting on that plane to come back to the UK after 4 months of French summer was like, don't really want to do it. But I had Plumpton. But I'd also, at that point, I had contact with Charlie, so our old head winemaker at Gusbourne. And I asked him if I could just go and see a day of harvest, not intending to get a job, but just can I come and just watch you load the presses, watch you do a ferment. And it turns out someone had dropped out. One of the interns couldn't make it anymore. So he said, well, actually, there is a job if you want it for the harvest. So I thought, yeah, okay, I'll do that. So I was studying and doing harvest at the same time in 2018, which was busy but fun. And I felt really, really new to it on my first day, trying to hook up a pump and a line and make sure your tanks are vented and all the little things that now are just like second nature. At the time, it was like, okay, make sure you do it right, don't get it wrong. But there were some really good people there that took me through it. Actually, I met one of them in Germany the other day. I was there at an event, and he worked with us as an intern in 2018. So it was really nice to catch up with him and just laugh about it.
I think so. And with Charlie Holland, you have had one of the bigger names, I would say, in the English wine market as a mentor.
Yeah. Very supportive man. I think my feeling was that it wasn't difficult to kind of break into a good producer in the industry. It felt like you were kind of, if you showed interest, you were kind of encouraged into it, which is nice. There were no stupid questions. You weren't made to feel like just because you were brand new, you weren't worth bringing along and supporting. So he's great as a mentor and a teacher and someone just, if you just want support, he was great. I wouldn't be in this position now if I hadn't have joined at that moment,
Good karma.
Yeah.
Yes. Talking about stupid questions, perfect transition to the first round of our little game. It's called red or white. Usually it's black or white, but we're into wine, so it's red or white. And it's just like you get 2 answers and you have to decide to go left or right. And there's 2 sections. One section is called life and the other one is called wine. And of course, we start with life. I guess the easiest question and also most difficult, Scotland or England?
England.
Oh, wow. Okay. Sunrise or sunset?
Sunrise.
Reading a book or listening to a podcast?
Reading a book.
Okay. Pub quiz or afternoon tea?
Pub quiz.
It's quite traditional, I guess. Hiking boots or Wellington boots?
Hiking.
Actually, I had to
hiking
Google that, what Wellington boots really are, because I just knew the name, but basically it's gumboots. So
Yeah, gumboots. Yeah, same thing.
yes. Highland Games or Chelsea Flower Show?
Highland Games.
Cooking
Yeah.
or baking?
Cooking.
Last question, salty or sweet?
Salty.
Okay. I guess there is also some influence on the winemaking. We talk about that later.
Yeah, what does all this mean?
Yeah, it's quite a mixture, but just to draw a little picture and get some
Who am
insight.
I?
Actually, the answer to the Scotland England question was quite fast. But I guess your
Hmm.
parents, your family is still in Scotland, so you still have the
So
relation.
my family are actually English, but my dad moved to Scotland to farm, of all places, to go and do arable farming. He picked the north of Scotland, so they're now back. They're now back in the south of England. But yes,
Ah,
yeah. So I'm
okay.
a sometimes Scottish, sometimes English. Depends what day
But
you ask me.
so were you born in Scotland, or did you just
Yeah,
go up there?
yeah. I
Ah,
was born in
okay,
Inverness. Yeah.
okay, Inverness. Okay, we stopped with your winemaking approach, or basically your story of getting into wine through Charlie. And if I
Hmm.
remember it correctly from ProWine, you're the youngest female head winemaker of England today. Is that correct?
Possibly, yeah. There's there is who else is there? There's Sarah at Lime Bay, but I don't know how old she is, so I think we're close.
We never ask women about their age, so. But you're very young, and you had a great person next to you, and then Charlie. I guess he went to Jackson.
Yeah,
For
so he's gone to Jackson Family Wines.
yeah.
So a new project in the UK. So he left us in September last year. So it was just before harvest. Um, so you can imagine the kind of excitement, but also a little bit of nerves, to go to roll straight into it. But it was great, and we've had a really strong winemaking team actually with Charlie. We've been the same group for a few years now, so it was kind of the same, but different. Yeah.
So would you say your approach changed when you took the position as a head winemaker?
I think first, so I'm totally bought into what we're doing at Gusbourne, and I wouldn't have sort of stayed for as long or gone for this position if I didn't really love what we do. So the approach hasn't really changed for me. I'm still sort of on the same mission that I was before, but it's just having that one layer removed. So it's just that realization that it does really stop with me, and shaping the team, shaping the culture as we move forward. That kind of is a big part of my role. So it's just appreciating that and growing with that.
How would you describe the general philosophy in viticulture and winemaking of Gusbourne?
So we like to really show what our sites can do. So we have so we're a 90-hectare estate, but we're split across Kent and West Sussex. So we have 60 hectares that surround the winery, which is in Appledore in Kent, and that's kind of like a clay sand-based soil. Whereas over in Sussex, the remaining 30 hectares there chalky and flinty. So we have a combination of our different clones of Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Pinot Meunier across both sites, but they really do respond differently to their little environments. And because we're making vintage only wine too, when we come around to blending, it's like a blank canvas. So just because a certain block went into, I don't know, Blanc de Blanc in 2022, doesn't necessarily mean that same block will go into that same wine in 2023. So for us, it's just the best expression of each site each year. Delving a bit more into that each year. There are some more single vineyard releases that are well, just as they sound, single vineyard, but fermented with time on lees. So we can kind of have this library of what do the components do, and then what are they actually contributing to the final wine. So I think that's kind of the main approach, is just doing the best you can from the land you have. Some years you have to be a bit more hands-on. Some you can be more hands-off. That's very season dependent, but that's what keeps it fun. You get dealt something different every year.
And you say you only make vintage wines? There is no
Mm-hmm.
non-vintage cuvées, stuff like that?
No non-vintage. So we kind of have a range of wines that we produce most years, but they're all blended from scratch each sort of February, March time. And as I say, depending on the season, the different blocks will have done something different, and we have to kind of find their place and find their home. which is fun. It's nice to kind of keep a theme in the Gusbourne style, but you get to talk about the season and watch how that expresses itself as the wine's age.
So you would say the blending is about expressing the vintage and not trying to stay totally consistent over years.
There's certainly a balance with it. You know, we want our Blanc de Blanc to taste like Gusbourne Blanc de Blanc, and I think there is something in that. You can keep a thread through and what's really at the core of a wine, but have the vintage variation kind of either side of that too. So there's certainly a balance with it. I would like to think you can tell if you do a vertical, you can tell they're the same wine, and the only thing you can spot is that they might be from a different vintage.
And obviously it works because I guess there were only 2 people who spotted the Blanc de Blanc Gusbourne in the blinder at ProWine, and you only were undecided whether it's 12 or 13. So
Yeah.
quite impressive. Quite impressive.
I said 12 in the end, didn't I? I did. Did I settle on 12?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's super. So, wow. Yeah. Super impressive. Okay, so blending is key, I would say.
Blending is key.
And it's just the 3 sparkling varieties, so Pinot Noir, Meunier, and Chardonnay. There's nothing else?
Just those 3. We have a lot of Burgundy clones too. So we think they bring a much more fruit intensity, lots of power. The fruit is really precise. It's not the dominating feature, but it's just what's there. You know that that's what it is. And we have a lovely long finish on the wines, and I think a lot of that is down to the nice concentrated fruit that we get from the Burgundy clones. And as I said, they're across both sites as well, so we get to see what Chardonnay 95 does on clay versus on chalk, which is really fun.
Is there a big mixture in between soils, or is it quite similar?
Sorry, the split of the clones, or the
type of soils, because you said there's something in Kent, there's something in Sussex.
Okay, so the clay in Kent is it heats up and holds its heat a bit more, so it's a bit richer, it's a bit riper, I suppose. So I guess a lot of the components that we're picking on the clay, they might be that intensity and that personality maybe in a wine. Not always, but often. And then in Sussex on the chalk, you've got more sort of purity, acidity, structure. So when you blend them together, you get structure from one, personality from the other, and then you end up with something that's the best of both worlds. But it's really interesting when we do the single vineyard wines and we taste Kent versus Sussex, then you realize there's so much more to it than just structure or flavor. As they age, they develop, and it's really interesting to kind of track. So it's not a hard and fast rule, but we do get different expression for sure.
And you said there's some Burgundy clones. Will there be still wine in the future?
So we do a little bit of still wine already.
Okay.
We've had quite a few releases now of Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, and 2 releases, I think, of the Pinot Meunier still red. So we did one of those in 2020 and in 2022. So when that gets really ripe, it's beautiful as a still wine too. And we don't make them in the still reds. We don't make them in every vintage. We wait for the fruit to be just perfect for that.
Perfect means riper fruit, so you get more body, more concentration.
Riper fruit, more flavor, more structure, and we won't do it if we don't think that come harvest those grapes are in that great spot.
And it's Chardonnay and Pinot Noir.
Yeah.
If you talk to people that are not super deeply into wine, it might be a bit weird to hear that there is winemaking in England, or there's wine in England in general. How would you describe the biggest challenges in winemaking, especially in England?
I think it's the variability still in the seasons. Yes, we're a bit warmer than we were maybe 10 or so years ago. And it might seem that, warming climate is on our side, but it's not. It doesn't come just with a load of benefits. There's also this changeable weather. We get frost at different times of the year than we used to, and the snow is less predictable. Storms are happening at funny times. So each season can be really different, and you can't kind of get your own set of rules for how you make every wine and just expect that to be the same vintage on vintage. You have to adapt when the first fruit starts coming into the winery. It's just checking in and making sure you know what's in front of you and what you're going to need to do, what you might not have to do. And I think that's the biggest challenge is staying flexible, staying adaptable, and moving with it. I think it's really important.
How do the English people see English wine?
They love it when they visit, and I've had a few people who, when they visit the first time, they stand in the vineyard and they look around and they think, I didn't know this was here, but it's real. It's a real industry. It looks professional. It looks, you know, the vines are well cared for. It's not a hobby. It's a proper industry for us now. And I think that quite a lot it's surprise more than anything. And then they love it. They have a glass while they're stood there and just think, yeah, it's on our doorstep and we didn't know. And then they come back and they talk about it. They send their friends, people they know, and you get the reaction again the next time, which is really fun. But it's never no one's ever disappointed by it. No one's ever sort of, this is crazy. Everyone embraces it. And we have a really lovely cellar door that has grown a lot over the past 5 years. We've got lots of intimate tasting spaces now, some lovely outdoor areas for picnics through the season. And every year that just gets busier and busier with people from the UK, but also internationally, just curious and want to come and see what it's all about.
So would you say that wine tourism is one of the focuses, or maybe the main focus of Gusbourne?
It's important to us for sure, and sort of spreading that message, but bringing people to us to see it is really important. I think it's much easier to explain when you're there and you can see it in front of you. As I say, some people maybe don't quite believe it when you're not in the environment, but it's certainly a very important thing, and we love it too. We love welcoming people from all over, and you know, the single vineyard wines are a great example of how we can connect people to our different blocks too, and really talk about it from the ground through to the glass, and why the way we do it is so important to us.
And if I remember it correctly, your vineyards are one of the few, or some of the few, that you can spot from the road, because usually you have
see
those
some of them,
huge hedges, and nobody knows that there is wine.
I was having this discussion the other day. I was in Germany, and you drive down. I was on the wine route, and everywhere you look, it's just up the sides of the road. And I was asked at that point, can you see the vineyards in England? But it is quite rare. You don't drive around and see them on the main routes, and they are kind of off down little narrow lanes, and as you say, surrounded by our massive English hedges that are everywhere and overgrown. But we have some sites in both Kent and Sussex actually that you can glimpse as you're driving past, which is nice.
Yeah. So obviously the people know that there is vineyards. The people like your wine, especially Gusbourne wine, when they come to the cellar door. What is internationally? Is there any markets where you say, okay, this is the future markets, especially for English wine?
So we are in, I think we're in 35 different export markets now. So we've done a lot of work on that over the last few years. We work a lot in Scandinavia. Norway are brilliant. They're really supportive of English sparkling wine. So we're continuing to build on that, but we've also got strong relationships in the US, in Japan, and I think it's as with anything, we're only a 20-year-old company, and it just takes that bit of time to get it out. But now it seems to be building a bit more momentum.
What was the first vintage at Gusbourne?
2006, and that was released in 2010. Yeah, really young. And for us, we think we've been around a while, but 20 years. This year, actually, the vines went in the ground in 2004.
So you have
it's not long at all.
Big anniversary this year. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've still got John Pollard with us, who's our vineyard manager, who planted those first vines. So that's great that he's been with us from day one.
Oh, pretty cool. And hopefully we'll be able to stay some more years.
Yeah.
So will there be any, I don't know, anniversary wine, stuff like this? I don't know.
I don't know. So it's technically only the year of planting, not the year of release. So who knows what we might think up in the next couple of years, in 2026.
But I saw an article on what is it, Winemaker's edition you made?
Yeah.
Well, what is it exactly?
So the Winemaker's edition, kind of as a concept, started in 2021 at Harvest. We had a batch of Chardonnay from Sussex that we got. We couldn't continue picking because it was raining in 2021. So we made a small, it was 1 barrel of still Chardonnay. So that was a bit of a team effort, and that kickstarted the Winemaker's Edition label, which is now an opportunity for anyone that works in the cellar to do something that they think is different, we've not tried before, is a bit experimental, and it's only very small bottlings. It might be 1 or 2 barrels. So the latest one that I did was from 2022, a really ripe, lovely vintage. So after harvest, when we were picking the Pinot Meunier for ourselves, we only took the very ripest bunches off the vine. But a week or so later, the things that were left had ripened that little bit more. So I went and did a second pick to make 1 barrel of Pinot Meunier with 5% Chardonnay thrown in there as well for fun. And that was So I really like what they do in the Northern Rhone when they add a little bit of Viognier to the Syrah for the stabilization of the color and all that. So I thought, well, I've got no evidence to back up that it did it, but let's put some Chardonnay with Pinot Meunier just to see what happens. And it turned out to be a really lovely wine, and because of that, we called it Baby Roti, just a kind of little nod to the Rhone. And we partnered with Lay and Wheeler, who sold it to their customers, and all the proceeds went to the Drinks Trust, which is an organisation in the UK. They support well-being, mental health, and that sort of thing of people in the drinks industry. So that was what happened to that barrel.
Is there any connection you have to Rhone, to the Northern Rhone?
No, just I like drinking it.
Okay, because you mentioned Syrah and Shiraz and the difference, and then you talked about Baby Roti, and
you can tell what I like to drink, can't you? From what I'm saying.
Probably. Okay, interesting. Yeah, and I mean, I like the idea of bringing these influences in your winemaking. And you say, I don't know, it's 95% red, and then it's like 5% like the Viognier, the Northern Rhone. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay, before we talk about the future of Gusbourne and maybe English winemaking, maybe second round of our little game, it's just about getting a bit more an idea of the wine, of the winemaking. New world or old world? Wine style.
Old world.
Old world? So when I say Shiraz or Syrah, you would say Syrah?
Yeah.
Okay. French oak or American oak aging?
French oak.
Okay. Gusbourne, 100% French oak?
And a little bit of English oak.
There is English oak.
There is English oak. So we had, a few years ago, we had a tree from one of our own forests cut down, and it came back as a barrel. So that was filled for the first time in 2020, which is nice, and a really fun thing to have in the cellar. And it looks and tastes a lot different to the French oak. The grain is is wider. I think they grow quicker here, so it's not so fine, not so tight, but it's a nice thing to have, actually, something that's from our own estate.
So is it slightly more oxidative then?
It doesn't show in more of an oxidative way. It's more, I guess, textural. Maybe it's slightly coarser, less fine.
Okay. It's an interesting story. English oak.
Mm.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's the discussion of French and American, sometimes German or Slavonian, but English oak is interesting. And you have so
Yeah.
many oak trees in England. Yeah, it still feels like there is natural forest. In Germany, it's quite
They're all
different.
they're all wonky though. You can't make many good barrels out of them.
Okay.
They've all got
Um,
branches coming off in the wrong places.
Okay. So there's only a few trees available.
Mhm.
Sustainable viticulture or the latest technological advancements?
Ooh. Sustainable.
And maybe a combination of both. There's so many
Yeah,
articles at
it's
the
tricky
moment
because I think
from
there's a
England.
lot you can do with the latest technology to become more sustainable. So that's a tricky one.
Is sustainability a thing for Gusbourne?
Yeah, so we've done a lot more with that in the last few years. So we now make sure that all our energy is 100% renewable. We minimize water use in the winery. Work a lot more with steam and less with chemicals. So we are pushing towards that, and we're one of the founding members of Sustainable Wines GB. So we work with them just to kind of move it forward as an industry. So it's definitely something that you hear more and more in the UK.
Pretty cool. And it's super interesting and also important topic, especially for the future.
Mm-hmm.
Blended or single varietal wine?
Blended.
Blended, okay. Because the art of blending makes it special.
Yeah.
Okay. Last one, Pinot Noir, Meunier or Chardonnay?
Pinot Noir.
Ah, I'm so
Yeah.
happy. I don't have to remove my hat. But I'm also really into Meunier, and if I will ever get the chance, I would love to try the Winemaker's edition. And there was a
Yeah.
100% Meunier from England, Langham made, Tommy made. Amazing wine.
Yeah.
And Meunier is very impressive and expressive as well as a sparkling. So
I think Meunier can sometimes kind of get lumped in as a blending component and not thought about on its own, but actually it's beautiful. And we do in 2018 actually we did a single variety Meunier sparkling, and that's really cool from our Sussex site, so on the chalk, and it's just in a really great spot at the moment. Really cool wine.
I love it. Nice one. We talked about the Winemaker's edition. What would you say you are most proud of accomplishing at Gusbourne?
I mean, that's pretty up there because that was quite a special release. I enjoyed the process. I enjoyed the good that wine has gone on to do for people in our industry. So that's very close to me. I think, starting at Gusbourne in 2018 as somebody that could, needed a lot of guidance to learn, to then become head winemaker only a few years later. I think that has got to be another huge achievement, and one I'm just massively proud of. But when you work in a supportive environment full of good people, it's maybe not as surprising for me, but yeah, that's up there.
I really like I would say, I don't know if it was an interview, but what is written about you and your history at Gusbourne on the website, where you said exactly the same, that I needed guidance and I received it, and this made it
Yeah,
so special and very
yeah,
honest,
but
very transparent. Love it.
it's really important. You've got to bring people along because you don't know it. It was the same. I did an internship in America, and they took a shot on me to be their lab intern, even though I probably had the least lab experience of the group. But they did. They just took a shot, and it worked out. And the experience I got doing that led to a big part of my role when I came back to Gusbourne. So and maybe it wouldn't have been quite the same had they not sort of taken that chance and encouraged me rather than saying, no, you don't have it right now doesn't mean you can't develop or won't have it in the future.
Did it make you working more scientifically afterwards?
Yeah, I'm quite scientific. I like numbers and data and research, but I like to balance that with all the sensory stuff as well. And I think that's quite a hard thing to learn when you do love spreadsheets and data. Is sometimes you've got to just forget that that's there and not be led by it, and just go back to your senses. And do you like this wine? Don't you like this wine? Why? So it's for sure, like, people talk about the art and the science, don't they? And it definitely is one of those roles that it's possible to do both. And I can't draw, I can't play music, but my creative outlet is in wine.
Yeah, I mean, wine is art, isn't it? Winemaking.
Yeah,
So
it is.
it's funny because I asked Guillaume the question, art or science, and he decided to take science. So yeah. Okay, but talking about numbers, I mean, England grew, I guess, 10% annually in vineyard or vineyard area. Where do you see the potential of England?
I just think it's becoming the range and the styles are just becoming much more diverse. There's much more out there. People are pushing the boundaries a little bit more, trying things that maybe we didn't 10 or so years ago. Producers are certainly gaining their confidence. And it's not just those really great vintages where everyone can make great wine. People are doing it in some of the slightly more challenging vintages as well now. So that's a true testament to just the skill that we have in the country. And I just think that's going to keep driving forwards. And it's just going to become more and more of an exciting place. And it's a big part of why I stayed in the UK rather than spending more time abroad, was it truly is one of the most exciting places to be. And you hear it all over now that everyone wants to try English wine, wants to see what all the hype is about, and then they do, and they think, yeah, this is great. So I think the momentum is built, and we're just going to keep rolling forwards with it.
And I hope you can keep this density of quality wines. It always reminds me a bit of Alto Adige, so northern Italy, South Südtirol, because there is basically just quality wine, and it's quite similar in England, and I love that. It's more expensive, but the quality is there.
But it's good. Yeah, it's good.
Do you think we will see a growth in sparkling or in still wine? Because currently it's 75% is sparkling, the rest is still.
I think more people will do still, and now there are some producers now that only do still, which is great. So it just opens up that. It just opens it all up a bit. And there's now something produced in England that suits lots of different palates, which is fun. It's not just kind of one wine should fit all. There's definitely a more diverse range.
Will there be a chance for tank method wine, tank method sparkling?
I think there are a few producers sort of trying it and doing well with it, but I don't know if it will. I don't know how it will on a bigger scale or more producers. Unsure, but I think we do in the UK traditional method so well, and a lot of people have sort of bought into that, are quite invested in doing that. And I don't think that's going to sort of dwindle off, and then it will just be kind of tank method. I think if anything, there'll be both, more of both.
Maybe it's a question of price, because I mean, England is a Prosecco loving country. You even had this crazy campaign in the metro in London. Have you seen the signs where they say this is not Prosecco?
No.
Where Prosecco wanted to state that Prosecco is only sold in bottles and not in kegs and in cans and stuff, because the English people always relate Prosecco just for tank method sparkling, no matter if it comes from the region or not. But I guess it will be more expensive to have a traditional the tank method sparkling from England, so it's better to set all on traditional method.
Yeah,
probably. Okay, last question, and this is maybe a more winey one than the other ones. What was the last wine that really stood out for you, that stayed in your mind? It's like, oh, I can still taste it.
What was it?
Probably a Syrah.
I had.
Northern Rhone.
It wasn't actually. I was gonna go for a Syrah, and I thought, no, let's move away from that. Possibly a Hawke's Bay Chardonnay, Cumie River Hawke's Bay Chardonnay. Different from where are they based? They're like Auckland, are they? But this is the Hawke's Bay, and it was delicious, classic of that region. And I love those big, bold, slightly reductive Chardonnays. So probably that, and that would have been a couple of weeks ago.
Is this easy accessible in England, or was this quite a special bottle?
No, it's something you can get hold of quite easily. So nothing that I've had like laying down or waiting for. But I find it really tricky with wine. I think you can wait and wait and wait for the right moment, but sometimes the moment is having a bottle.
Made by the wine.
And those,
Yes.
yeah, and those moments often, if something just caught me off guard and surprised me as being a great bottle on a Wednesday night, that memory sticks with me more than sort of waiting and waiting and waiting for a bottle.
So Wednesday night, you go for a pub quiz, and then you take your bottle of Chardonnay from Hawke's Bay with you?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what we do in the southeast of England.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, pub quiz is even a thing in Germany. People like it, but I've never been to one in England. So maybe
great.
next week.
They're fun.
Okay. Mary, thank you very much for your time, for answering all
you.
those questions. It was a pleasure. Will you be at London Wine Fair with Gusbourne?
I think I'll be there on Monday.
Monday. At the Wine GB stand or separately?
So I personally will be there on Monday.
Yeah, I still haven't figured out the whole concept of the fair, if it's more international or local producers, but I'm still in process. So
yeah,
we'll see.
So you'll be there Monday?
All 3 days.
Oh, cool.
I prepared some interviews, and of course, I'm looking forward to the what is it called? Judgment of London result.
Yeah.
I guess it's held on Monday and published on Tuesday. I guess.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah,
probably.
Interesting.
Yeah. Is there anything you would recommend? Well, I definitely have to go to, especially as a foreigner, as a German, understanding the domestic market.
No, I would just do as big as the range of UK wines is that's there. Just get around all of it and notice all the differences. I think now it was the same at Provine. You walk around the stand and there are 12 producers there, and every one of them has got a different style, and I think that's cool.
Yeah,
you can start to pick that out.
I'm really looking forward to the bandwidth of everything you can see.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay.
Great.
Thank you very much.
No worries.
Have a great
Thank
week.
you. Thanks.
Maybe we see each other next week.
Yeah. See you next week. Bye.
Bye-bye.